The Scarlet and Violet meta of the Pokemon trading card game is just about done. Paldea Evolved, by the time you watch this, is officially live on Friday. It might be out on PTCG Live right now. But in any case, the new era of the Pokemon trading card game is here, and I'm really excited for the way that Paldea Evolved could potentially shake up the meta. But what about the Scarlet and Violet meta? Looking in our rearview mirror, did it live up to, I can't speak to everybody's expectations, but did it live up to my hopes and dreams? So in today's video, I wanted to take a look back at where the meta was before Scarlet and Violet, what the meta currently is in Scarlet and Violet, and just see how things shook out. I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about the meta and where it was and where it's going. And so, leading up to the launch of Scarlet and Violet, it was Lugia City. Yeah, as we can see, just using limitless data, which doesn't encapsulate IRL tournaments and stuff, Lugia was everywhere. 20% meta share in online tournaments, followed by Mew, Lost Box, Regigigas, Duraludon, and Lugia was absolutely crazy. Probably the most broken deck of the Sword and Shield era, and I think we were, as a community, really wanted to see Lugia go away. And I think early on we thought like, oh yeah, Lugia is gonna lose all these cards, it's gonna be bad. And as it turns out, now we move into the Scarlet and Violet meta, and no, I mean, it does lose stuff, right? As we can see, it moved from the #1 deck most played to the #3 deck, and its win rate is actually a little worse. It dropped by a percentage point. It's probably inconsequential. But Lugia did come back down to earth a bit, and we saw Lost Box kind of take that top spot. Maybe not as dominant as Lugia was in its prime, which is a good thing. I personally I don't like it when there's that one definitive deck that everyone's trying to beat. And with Lugia in particular, it was really hard to find answers against it. So we ended up with, a different meta to a certain extent, right? Lugia not as powerful, especially on PTCG Live, where in the previous meta, because Lugia was a free deck, everyone was playing Mew or Lugia, and now we don't see it nearly as much, despite it still being very strong, because it's not a free deck. And that does factor into the experience of playing Pokemon TCG, particularly Pokemon TCG Live. So instead, our top 10, we got a bunch of Lost Box decks, Gardevoir, Lugia, Archetypes, Mew, and I think this is kind of where I get disappointed in where the meta went in Scarlet and Violet. Yes, Lugia did get knocked off of its perch at the top. However, most of these decks are kind of the same ones that were dominant last time around. Yeah, we lost Regigigas, and some of the Lost Box variants are a little different, but I don't think Scarlet and Violet did enough to shake up the meta in the way that I personally would have liked to. And I think in particular, like Gardevoir and Miraidon are fine, but I really didn't like, I felt like the second tier of decks were really disappointing, but we'll get to those. Let's go in order here of we'll work our way down to the different meta decks. And here's Lost Box. I know there's a billion different examples. You could play it with the Turbo build with the Dragonite. Here's the Kyogre build. There's the Sky Seal Stone build. Whichever version you play, Lost Box was the top of the ladder, on top of the tier list, because it's just so versatile as a deck. You can cherry pick the cards as you want. Of course, you have to be very mindful of which cards you're throwing into the Lost Zone, but just an incredibly strong deck with mostly single prize attackers or multi-prize attackers that let you uptrade with Sky Seal Stone, or let you do big damage that is easy to clean up later with Sableye. And I think that a lot of people were expecting this deck to fall off a little bit in light of the fact that Scoop Up Net was going away. And as it turns out, no, that was actually, that meme, the whole call an ambulance, not for me. That's kind of where this went, right? We lost Scoop Up Net, but then the Lost Box just put in more switch cards, and now you can't dodge the Sableye, and Sableye ended up being like still a ridiculously busted card. And so whatever variation of Lost Box you're playing, Lost Box is ridiculously good. Now going forward, Lost Box may take a bit of a hit here just with the popularity of Iono, but I think Lost Box is going to continue to be a very strong deck. Also, Blast, welcome to the stream, and thank you so much for dropping by. Let's continue of talking about the decks that kind of made an impact here. Gardevoir. This has been kind of up and down. It made a big splash at EUIC with Tord Reklev getting second place, but it's been kind of shaky since. And I have been very up and down on Gardevoir. When I first started playing it, absolutely hated it. And then I kind of grew to be like, it's okay. I just don't like the fact that it takes so many turns to set up. You're almost always playing from behind. There are a lot of moving parts in this deck that can fall apart. And there are more and more counters, like the Arceus Umbreon deck has started to become popular. And I think from a PTCG Live perspective, Gardevoir has been busted the entire time. There have been multiple game-breaking glitches that cause the game to crash or cause you to not be able to attach energy. And at this point, we don't see Gardevoir nearly as much on PTCG Live because everybody knows it's busted. And I don't think that's fair to the players, and it's not fair to... it's not fair to the players because this is still a very strong deck. Despite, my feelings on it, it's still a strong deck that no one's playing in live because it doesn't work as it should. And that's really disappointing. We've also got Lugia. So we talked about Lugia a lot in the early bit of this video. And yeah, it just kind of changed. It adapted. It took out the Yveltal and the Eviltal, however you pronounce it. It has a different one instead. Kind of going the single strike route with the Tyranitar, possibly the Urshifu or the Duraludon. And this is still a very strong deck because you can just pull in. You can uptrade with Tyranitar on almost any multi-prize Pokemon in there, Urshifu if you're trying to be offensive to smash through shields like Duraludon, or you put Duraludon in here which blocks special energy. Again, just a very versatile deck. That being said, it is a lot less consistent than it used to be, having lost stuff like Quick Ball and Evo Incense, and it's a bit of a crapshoot, and you're doing coin flips with Mezagoza, and it's not as consistent as it once was. This was already not a deck that I liked playing very much, and the inconsistency of it made it like even more something I didn't want to play. That being said, still an incredibly strong archetype in the current meta. Mew VMAX. I think a number of people have been wanting Mew's demise, and if anything, it's come on strong of late. I know like Manaphy is not a primary thing, but Lost Box matchup, the Kyogre, some will play it. But anyhow, Mew VMAX continued to do very well, and it won like 4 majors recently. It was Malmo, Hartford, and a couple of other ones. And in particular, the Fusion build kind of came back and won some tournaments with the Meloetta and the Alessa Sparkle. But regardless of which version you played, Mew VMAX continued to be strong. Now going forward, there are some new cards coming out. Ting Lu that can shut off abilities, Spiritomb that can shut off abilities, and it's probably going to be worse for Mew. I would foresee that this version, the Fusion version, is going to be better going forward because you can attach Fusion energy to Genesect so that it doesn't get hurt by the shutting off of abilities by Ting Lu and Spiritomb. Giratina V-Star, this is a weird one. In Japan, this deck does incredibly well, and internationally, it hasn't been as popular. I still think it's a very strong deck, but it might just be a thing of in a best-of-3 format, Giratina V-Star doesn't work as well or as consistently, but I do like it in the sense that Giratina gives you a great tool for hitting multi-prize attackers, doing so much damage. And we were playing the Urshifu and Teleon deck today, and we got bodied by this version of Lost Box, despite the fact that the Urshifu and Teleon deck is really good at Lost Box, because Giratina can pretty much just one-shot a 3-prize Pokemon instantly, and that was really tough for us to come back from. Still a good deck, but not as big as it has been internationally, and I don't see that changing. It'll still be a good deck going forward, but I don't see it picking up momentum. Gudra is one of my favorite decks. It's my favorite way to play Lost Box, and it definitely made a impact on the competitive meta in the Scarlet Violet era. Again, it didn't lose much. It just lost, like, yeah, scoop up nets were thing. You just put in more switch cards, and it basically played the same. And Gudra is still very good, but with the rise of Duraludon in recent times, it does make it harder to play Gudra in the competitive meta, though I still love this deck. I still think it's going to be at least good going forward. Maybe not the like top tier deck that it once was, but still a good deck to play. Miraidon is the other new big archetype, and it's been kind of shaky, TBH. I think that as players have found out, like, it's awesome to hit turn 1 electric generator and smash for 220 on the first turn going second. However, it's very shaky. Almost all of the attackers are very squishy. Miraidon with only 220 and Raikou with only 200. You end up getting smashed very quickly, and on top of that, energy acceleration. You're in the Regieleki build in particular. You're really preying on electric generator to strike for you. When it doesn't, it just completely falls apart. Now, this is a deck. The Regieleki version has seen some top 8s here and there, and there's a lot more. There's momentum for a more Flaffy based build with like Raichu, and maybe there's more room for Miraidon to grow. Maybe we'll see that in the next iteration. I see in the chat here, Lil Pikachu says it's terrible. I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think we have all of the pieces for this to be top tier. It does have a lot of upside, and I still think it is good, but it is not like a top tier deck in a way that's going to shake up the meta, at least not at this point in time. We also saw Arceus Giratina get some shine here. I actually wanted to point this out. In Silver Tempest, Arceus Giratina was all the way down here, the 45th most played deck with a 0.21% meta share. And in Scarlet and Violet, it jumped all the way up to number 5 and it did okay. It got like a 48% win rate. And now where is that tab? I can't even see it now. Here. Yeah. And yeah, we saw in competitive play, like Squovit had that moment on stream where it ended up pulling the Giratina V-Star with just the one card. I think this deck is okay. I personally don't like playing this one very much. I really struggled with it off stream, and then on stream it worked weirdly well. It's a very straightforward deck that does a lot of damage, and it does okay. Of the Arceus variants in the Scarlet and Violet era, I personally prefer Arceus Duraludon Umbreon, which I think is fantastic, and the Umbreon gives you that dark typing that also lets you hit Mew and Gardevoir for weakness, and on top of that, the free Gust in there as well. Not only, even if you're not hitting dark attackers, just being able to gust up what you want is very cool. And then Sablezard, it's another Lost Box. This one, there was a lot of talk in the videos I watched talking about, and Gazer Beam, welcome back. We're just kind of talking about the meta in the Scarlet and Violet. I saw a lot of talk about Sablezard. I've seen this deck on live like less than 5 times. And if you didn't watch the video of our Urshifu and Teleon versus the Sablezard deck, it was bonkers. Anyway, you have to watch how we fought against Triple Manaphy with Urshifu. Amazing match. I didn't see this one much on live. When I saw Lost Box all the time, and people were deferring to either the turbo build or a single prize build, and not so much this one. I still think this one is good, but maybe not the powerhouse that it once was, particularly in the Lost Origin meta. Yeah, you get Lost Zoned with the Radiant Charizard, and then that's kind of it, right? And then it's like the last major deck, and we played this on stream today. Make sure to go back and watch the video. The Inteleon Urshifu, kind of on the outskirts of the meta. IMO, it's a pretty wonky deck, but it does have some good matchups against some of the better decks in the game. If you can get set up, you can do some really cool stuff against Lost Box. You can cheese your way to victory against Mew with double Drapion if you've got 2 Drapions in your deck. Very fun deck to play if you can get set up, and definitely can get some like crazy 4D chess plays like we did in the other video. I'll link it here. But yeah, I think is going to be destined to be like on the fringes of competitive play because it is a weird deck to play and it kind of has some really bad matchups against some of the most meta relevant decks like a Lugia. I think where I got most disappointed in the Scarlet and Violet meta is sort of that next tier down of decks. Like, to me, I really loved the way that the Lost Origin meta was, where you had all these secondary decks. Like Zoroark V-Star was pretty good, Kyurem was really good, Goodra was really good, and that didn't really happen here. Like, yeah, Dialga came from Astral Radiance, and we did get a new way to play it with the Magnezone, but this wasn't consistent enough to really be competitively viable. If you are a fan of the Shadow Rider League battle deck, I think there were some early results in Japan that made me go like, oh, maybe Shadow Rider is going to be a thing. And like, no, it wasn't, unfortunately. Still a fun deck to play, but didn't really have the juice to keep up with the current meta. Palkia, we've got the League battle deck here, and this did get some play. It did get some placings here and there. However, I think that its power level, I think it is a solid rogue tier deck, and this could get better in the future. But yeah, Palkia just again on the outskirts of being meta, but still a very good and very fun deck to play. At least it was good and fun. The big disappointments to me, again, like those secondary decks, I thought Oinkologne was not nearly good enough to hang, and neither was the Dondozo Tatsugiri. I call it the Rip Bozo deck. I don't think there is just enough Pokemon recovery in the current card pool to make this deck work. That being said, with Super Rod coming back, maybe there's a home for this going forward. And then, yeah, Spidops. Like, I love Leafeon V. Shady Dealings, Leafeon VMAX is one of my all-time favorite decks. And it's been really sad not only having Leafeon VMAX, but like not having a good grass deck. We have not had a viable grass deck in the meta in like a year. And I was really hoping that Spidops could be the thing that helps get Leafeon back to the forefront. And at this point in time, like, no, this wasn't it at all. And so, yeah, that's just kind of a look back at the Scarlet and Violet meta. A little bit of a different video there. I am sad to have seen certain cards rotate out. I will admit I'm sad to see Shady Dealings go. I'm really sad to see Crobat go. Not as sad to see Marnie go. Iono is going to replace that anyway, and that one's much better. I did like how the meta was able to bring Lugia down a notch and kind of democratize the power at the top a little better. However, I was ultimately disappointed in the fact that it kind of was the same deck still in the top running, and the new stuff didn't quite hit the way that I'd hoped it would. However, with Paldea Evolved coming out, we're seeing Chien-Pao, we're seeing Iono, we're seeing Ting Lu, we're seeing Reversal Energy, which could really shake things up. I am hopeful, just hopeful to see more competitive decks in the meta. But what say you? What did you think about the meta of Scarlet and Violet? Let me know in the comments of this video. But in the meantime, we got to get going. Thank you so much for watching. Twitch, stick around, but to our YouTube friends, we got to get out of here. Before we go, some quick plugs. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at In Third Person. You can find me on Twitch at In Third Person, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.